Hello everyone and welcome to the first in our 2023 webinar series on electrifying commercial fleets. I'm Nino Di Cara, founder of Electric Autonomy Canada, and I'm delighted to introduce this episode, How to Buy a Fleet EV, which is sponsored by Ford Pro. We're grateful to the team at Ford Pro for their support of this discussion. Well, when buying an electric vehicle for fleets, you have to think beyond the vehicle itself to a new electric ecosystem. Today's panel will walk you through the procurement process for EVs, along with the other products you'll need to consider, such as charging and telematics. We've got some superb speakers today who know a great deal about the buying process for commercial EVs, and that's the team at Ford Pro. I'm delighted to introduce you to them now. They are Greg Watkins, General Manager, Kevy Stephen, Cross-Connected Marketing Manager, Scott Kuzma, Fleet and Lease Marketing Manager, Logan Trainer, Vehicle Line Specialist, Commercial and Electric Vehicles. And moderating the discussion is my colleague, Andrew Elkin, Managing Editor of the Electric Autonomy EV Fleets Knowledge Hub. So over to you, Andrew, to start the discussion.
Thank you, Nino. To get us going, I want to share that this webinar series has emerged from our work at the EV Fleets Knowledge Hub. That's Electric Autonomy Canada's online course for fleet pros who want to take the first steps toward electrification. Launched last fall, the EV Fleets course comprises some 30 lessons that take professionals from the EV basics to how to approach charging to putting drivers on the road gas-free. And again, it's aimed at people like all of you who've joined us today. If you haven't already, I encourage you to check it out after our session today at evfleets.ca. Now, on to our discussion. Our first question is for you, Greg Watkins, the General Manager at Ford Pro Canada. Greg, everyone here today has heard or has been told that they've got to electrify their fleet operations. Why is it important for fleet managers to start thinking about this right now?
Okay. So when we talk about, the electrification of fleets, I think, there's there's quite a few things we have to consider. And I think, one of the things, well, first of all, I should say that, thank you, of course, for joining us. And, we're really, pleased to be given this opportunity to speak with, our fleet customers and dealers and anyone else who's joined the webinar today. We're going to clearly, we in the business of selling vehicles, we're also in the business of selling chargers and electrification and software. But, the content that we try to deliver today is really going to be trying to help you guys with your fleets. And I'm hoping it'll be, relatively brand agnostic. So we'll try to do that in the spirit of sort of trying to help everyone get educated and sort of move forward along their EV journey. So that's sort of a baseline. So again, thanks for having us. I think one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to share a couple slides with you. And I think I have 3 slides, and they're very simple slides, but they sort of say a lot about the position that to some extent we all find ourselves in. So this is a look at the forecasted EV mix in Canada. So this is the one that, we all know, our bosses all know, that show just how much of an impact and how much of a change our industry in Canada and also, of course, in North America and then, of course, globally is going to have. And as you get out into that 2030 timeframe, you can see where we're going to be looking at 40 to 50% minimum of the vehicles sold will be EVs. And this is not just light duty. The chart itself is all vehicles. That includes heavy duty product as well. I got a couple little comments up in the top there about the Canada light duty mandate. So, this is sort of where we're headed, right? 60% of vehicles by 2030, light duty vehicles to be electrified, and 100% by 2035. So that sort of shows where, the government's headed. It shows where, the manufacturers are trying to support, where the regulations are driving us, et cetera. But that just shows sort of the scale of the opportunity and the challenge ahead of us, right? So that's kind of a first baseline. The next slide is an interesting one. That one is more Ford centric. So this is just a look at, what is Ford doing, right? So, we've made massive investments. So we've got a big project in the US called Louisville City. We've got electrification announcements we made in Canada as well. We've got great products. We've chosen, and we're one of the earlier to markets in the commercial space. We've chosen to, we call it electrify our icons, but ETransit, F-150 Lightning are great new products that are in the commercial space that we've got. And we've got Mach-E, which is sort of a more broad appeal, but also a great electric product that competes with the best in the industry. And it just talks about our battery investments. But the bottom line of this slide is that we're spending almost over $50 billion in EVs and EV technology through 2026. That is a massive amount of money. The next slide is even a larger amount of money. And this one sort of talks about, where the industry's at. So, again, I don't want this to be a Ford-centric conversation entirely, right? So this just talks about, I just picked a couple of headlines, right? Volkswagen Group, 50 billion in EVs, Stellantis, over 30 billion in EVs, Toyota, 35 billion, GM, investments in EV products as well, but also in the charging space. And then there was a Reuters article that I read that talked about global automakers. So 37 global automakers, so all the ones that we would of course recognize, are investing $1.2 trillion in EV and battery technologies through 2030. So you can clear the slides now. So that just shows that, like whether we like it or not, the reality is that this is for real, right? So we are all headed in this path, and we've got to find ways to work with that. And one of the ways that it will manifest itself, for example, when you're making decisions around buying vehicles, let's say today that you're a transit customer, which is, obviously a Ford van product. And you say to me, hey, Greg, I'd like to get some EVs or I'd like to get some transits. I would say, well, hey, you can have, you can buy 10 transits, but we can build about 8 of them will be gas and then about 2 will be electric, right? That would be the mix. But in a future state, it's going to be out of our control. At some future point, it's going to be, hey, I want to buy vans. And I'm going to say, listen, half your vans have to be electric. And then after that, it'll be 60% will be electric. And you'll get into a position where whether, EVs are your thing or whether your company's there, you're going to be in a position where that's really the product that's available to you in the market. So in a world that's, that's heading towards this 50, 60% and then, 100% EVs by 2035, we all have to get our heads around it, right? And there's a big learning curve. And, one of the things that I did a couple of weeks ago is I was at the work truck show in Indianapolis. So it's the largest commercial work truck show. I suspect it's some of you on the phone were there as well, or on the webinar were there as well. And the one thing that was very prevalent there is you couldn't walk for 20 feet without stumbling across some electrification sort of product, whether it was modifying existing vehicles, whether it was upfit put on an ETransit or a F-150 Lightning or some other electric vehicle from another manufacturer, whether it was new players and new entrants in the marketplace, conversions, charging infrastructure. Electric was everywhere, right? So the market is finding its way. There are lots of players, there's lots of technologies, lots of support that's happening, but it is happening and it is very different. We've got government support, right? So there's government supports, whether it's for charging infrastructure or for vehicle sales. Understanding and getting some familiarity of those is also very important. And then you got also, some benefits now for us at Ford. We are happy that we've got availability, right? If you're looking for ETransits and F-150 Lightnings for your commercial business or Mach-E's, we're able to support, right, in the near term, right? So there are opportunities to get started on this journey. One of the things as you're thinking about, and I know the question was about, some of the differences with commercial vehicles is, when you're a retail customer and you're going to make a decision to go electric or not, you're going to consider cost, of course, you're going to consider, the creature comforts, the features you like in your vehicle, and you're going to think about range. That's going to be sort of the conversation. If you go buy a Mach-E or you buy a Tesla or whatever else you want to buy, it's going to be buy a vehicle, it's going to be put a charger on the wall in your garage and, Bob's your uncle, you're good to go. Your maximum range is probably dictated by, where you might go to drop your kid off to university or where you might go to the cottage or something like that. That's kind of the things you have to think about. Once you get into commercial space, now you're thinking about range, you're thinking about cost, you're thinking about transits, you're thinking about trade-offs between range and payload, because that is very real in the commercial space. When you start talking about trucks and vans, you're thinking about charge times, you're thinking about depot scenarios versus home charging scenarios. There's all sorts of things that you have to start to get your head around. And one of the things that I've been pushing with my team as we sort of sit here today is encouraging our customers, encouraging people to move forward to some degree, right? Because there are a lot of learnings that customers have. So, we've got customers who bought 2 or 3 vehicles from us. We've got customers who bought literally hundreds of EVs from us in the last, let's call it 12 to 18 months. And they learn a lot as they go. And, for us to succeed, as an automaker in the industry, and for the government mandates to succeed, it's important that we get as many people as possible to start their journey. You're going to learn lessons. The first steps, doesn't matter when you take them, whether you take them tomorrow, or you take them 2 years from now, your first steps will be the hardest, right? You're going to learn things you didn't know, things you didn't think about. And when you think about, as a purchasing manager or as a company in this space, like I mentioned, you've got the typical range, payload, all those types of things. But now you've also got to think about contracting, how, who's going to install your chargers? How's that going to work? Contracting for software, things like that, just going through your legal departments, your purchasing departments. Some purchasing departments have separation between vehicles and charging infrastructure and things like that. So now you've got to bring parties together who aren't typically used to working together. You've got to think about, where do you deploy EVs, right? So in a company that has maybe 50, 100, 200 vehicles in service, where's the best application for an EV? Is it a good, a worker truck? Is it a good manager truck? Is it a good, service person truck? You have to figure those types of things out. And, you also have to look at your own internal mandates and question to yourself, if my directors or my bosses are saying, I got to be 30% EV by 2025 or something like that, the math will dictate that you need to start quicker than you probably think. And, as you think about all of those considerations, it's a little bit scary. But the good thing is, and this is true of Ford Pro, because, one of the reasons that we exist as Ford Pro is to develop or to provide a one-stop shop for all things EV, as well as other commercial vehicles. But that's not the only, we're not the only ones out there. There are people like Electric Autonomy who are educating and furthering the cause of EVs. There are other automakers who fill different, or not automakers, but different companies that fill different parts of the value chain. And there's a lot of them out there able to help and able to support on this journey. So, as you're sitting there going, this is quite daunting, for us, give us a call. We'll help you through it. One of the things that we do to help in the commercial space is we do what's called a BEV fit assessment. So we'll talk to you about, and Kevy will go into more detail about that, but, we'll take you through, do these vehicles work for you? Do they really work for you? And then what are the next steps, and help hold your hands through? So, as you're looking at all of this, you have to understand that there are a lot of people finding a way to be useful and helpful and moving people's journey along, right? So, we're all here to work together. It is more complicated than just buying a vehicle and putting gas in it. But at the end of the day, it's not so different. And there are lots of people there and out there to help. You just got to get started, start making a few phone calls and see what you might want to do. And, we think Ford Pro is a good place to start, but, and we're here to help. But I think, there are lots of people out there who can help to get started, whether it's videos, whether it's websites, all those kind of things. So I think I covered off most of what I wanted to cover off there. So yeah, Andrew, anything I missed?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect place to jump back in. And like as you said, the challenge ahead of us, and you made it clear that Ford and other automakers are all moving. The market is growing right now. I wonder if we could quickly cover one of the questions that's already come up. It's that or maybe we can get a number for later on in the session. But do you have any idea around how many commercial EVs Ford will be producing in 2023, 24? And are there, I guess, I'll save the second half of that question for when we talk with Logan later about what future vehicle classes Ford might be getting into.
So we can't talk much about future product. I mean, Ford is a leader in the commercial space. We are the market leader in Canada. We are the market leader in North America. We are very committed to commercial products. So where there's opportunities for commercial EVs in the future, expect that we will be there. So I think that's probably a fair statement. In the near term, I would say that for customers looking to start their EV journey with Ford, I would say that in the near term, in the 23 calendar year, we can probably, I suspect we'll be able to help most customers get on a journey. Maybe we can't give you everything you're looking for, but certainly we can help a lot of customers make a meaningful dent in their sort of their beginning.
Okay,
so
great.
If you're interested, you can talk to us for sure.
Thank you, Greg. And, as you mentioned, and the title of this webinar is about the differences between what your process may have been in the past and what it will be now as you look to move to EVs. One of the big steps, Kevy, is assessing the client needs. So my question for you is, Kevy, some of your clients might not realize what a big difference there is between procurement for ICE vehicles and that for EVs. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about how Ford guides new clients through this process?
Yeah, for sure. Can you maybe bring up my first slide? Help me. All right. So really the process for us, it's really like in two phases. Phase one is really around giving as much information as possible to the customer, which we like to call it a benefit assessment, EV readiness review. But really what we want to do is, before we go ahead and producing vehicles, we want to make sure that the customer knows, I guess, what he's getting himself into, making sure that he's got the right use cases for our vehicles, but also either he does have a charging solution in place or he has a plan to have a charging solution so that he can truly benefit from the electric vehicle, right? So that first session is really purely educational, and really it's divided in 4 buckets. The first bucket is around charging solution, where we would give an overview of our current charging solution that we offer at Ford Pro, but also we want to understand from the customer perspective if he already has a charging solution in place, and if the current chargers that he has installed will meet our truck needs in terms of charging, right? This is what we build. We build F-150 ETransit. So we want to make sure that there's enough power to, and again, it's about having that good customer experience when they're driving our vehicles. So we'll give them an overview of the different charging solutions that exist. Then there's the discussion around range anxiety, autonomy of the vehicle, and what are those differences that will impact the range of the vehicle. So this one we'll talk about, and again, we live in Canada, right? So we do have extreme conditions sometimes, so temperature, payload, upfits will have an impact in the range, but also one that's not listed here is driver behaviors. Understanding the driver behaviors and harsh acceleration will have an impact on the range and the autonomy of the vehicle. So giving them an overview of the range of the vehicle, what type of use cases, where an ETransit or a Lightning is best suited for, and making sure that the customer has the right use case for our electric vehicle. Then we get into preconditioning, and this is one where typically for a gas vehicle, this isn't something that we often think about, but on an electric vehicle, this is so critical, preconditioning. And all it is really is, it's about changing the behaviors and making sure that drivers will actually program their departure time every day so that the vehicle can start to warm up before we start driving. And why we want to do that, it's because we want to make sure that the vehicle will leverage the energy from the charger while it's still plugged, instead of using the energy of the battery to warm up. Okay, and that's really what's about the preconditioning. And then we do give an overview on the telematic. Why telematic? Because you can have the best electric vehicle, you can have the best charging solution, but really you do need that software as well that will allow you to really manage your fleet, manage your charging sessions, and making sure that, you know, when it's time to go on your route, that you've got a full battery range and then you're able to hit the road. So really, step one is really giving as much as information as possible to make sure that the customer understands what he's getting himself into. So we will not produce, ideally, we don't want to produce a vehicle unless we've had that conversation and we're making sure that the vehicles are going to the right customers. So that's really phase one. So if you go to the next slide, and then Greg talked about this around some of the complexity that we have around EV and charging, and the process is different. So I'd say that it's not that it's complex, it's just that there are so many players that play a role within that solution that it takes time to plan properly, right? So on the gas, for gas vehicle, really once you place your order, all you have to think about is the vehicle delivery, right? On the charging side, well, there are different players that do play a role, and you see them. I won't go through all of them now, but there's utility company coordination, charger installation, software connection, construction. So a lot of different processes, different players that play a role in the overall solution. So if you go to the next slide. So as part of this different step processes that you have to think about, like Greg mentioned, and you guys saw it in the video, we have created this ecosystem to provide that one-stop shop for the customer. But at the end of the day, those are really like, the different things that we have to start to think about. When I look at the design and build, part of the process of having a charging solution is, depending on how complex the charging solution will be, you could be talking about conceptual design, engineering designs, and getting permits before you can even start the construction and the installation of the charger. So those are the things that you have to think about. Obviously, there's the hardware, but financing. Before there would only be talks about financing the vehicles, but now, the EV space has grown as well, right? So there is the ability to finance, and working with us, obviously we provide that support where you could be financing the whole project. And by whole project, I mean the design, the engineering designs, securing the hardware, the vehicle, the construction, and the installation of the hardware of your charging solution. So we're able, as a partner, to finance the whole project, but there are different partners out there that have entered that space that are able to help and support the different fleet customers. FMCs are a good example. So different partners that are out there, and there is a solution. But all of that to say is that our solution, we do help customers, and we are ready to walk or to run as fast as the customer wants us to walk or run with them. So that's really kind of like the phase one, and then I'll get into the phase two of the discussion and of the process. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, so once we've identified the use cases, we know we've got the right customer either has a charging solution or is looking to partner with us for their charging needs. This is where we would deep dive a little bit more in terms of what are those different charging solutions that exist, right? So typically we cover the three types of charging solutions that exist. We've got either the depot, home, or public, and I'll touch on the three of them. So the first one is the depot. Depot, really, this is the use case where you're going to have a driver that will, after his route, once the day is finished, he will go back to the company location to drop the vehicle, allow the vehicle to charge itself. Meanwhile, the driver will typically go back home with his personal vehicle and then come back the next day when you have a full charge and ready for his route. So for depot charging, we've got two kinds of chargers. You either have level 2 chargers or level 3 chargers. On the level 2 chargers, we have 11.5 kilowatts or 19.2 kilowatts. These chargers will typically charge your vehicle. You'll go to 0 to 100% overnight, right? So from 8 to 10 hours, you're able to fully recharge the vehicle, and then you're good to go. On the level 3 charger, this is the one where it's the big charger that will allow you to go get back to 80% of your range within an hour. So some of the big differences, I just want to touch on some of the differences that we see between the two, the level 2 or the level 3 chargers. The first one is pricing, right? So pricing on a level 2 charger, we're talking about, to acquire the hardware itself, from a Ford Pro perspective, around $2,000 for a level 2 charger versus level 3 charger. It starts around the 40,000, 45,000. So right there is a big difference in the cost of acquiring that charger. So this is where the customer has to think about, what are those cases? How am I going to charge the vehicle? Who is going to drive the vehicle? So to determine which path are we going to go on? Are we just going to go on with level 2? Are we going to go with level 3? Are we going to have a mix of level 2 and level 3? The second one is lead time. Whether you're going with level 2 or level 3, for us, the lead time is, within 2 weeks. If the customer wants us to run fast, we're able to ship a charger to the customer within 2 weeks. We can have all of the paperwork done, and we've got a charger on its way to the customer. So no big differences there. In terms of, are these chargers able to charge other make vehicle? Absolutely. Whether you're going with level 2 or level 3, we are able to charge any make vehicle. Even the Teslas, the only difference is that for a Tesla, you would need an adapter to be able to charge with our chargers. In terms of software, I did talk a little bit about it in the previous slides, but on both sides, definitely you do need that software that will help you really truly manage your charging sessions and making sure that you've got a great experience. The last thing you want is to have a vehicle that comes back at the depot. The driver does not plug the vehicle. There is no warning that's being sent to the fleet manager. The driver comes back the next day and the vehicle is not charged. So therefore, you're not able to complete your ride and generate revenues for the company. And in terms of project timeline, although complex and although there are different players, for a level 2 charger project, think about 4 to 5 months. You could have your project wrapped up, meaning you've ordered your vehicle, the vehicles have arrived, we have shipped the chargers are installed, and you're good to go and experience your charging solution and your electric vehicle. On the level 3 side, a little different. Although we're able to ship quickly, it just takes time before we're able to install, especially when you're combining a few level 3 chargers on the depot side. So, but this process with a level 3 charger can take up to a year before your charging solution is fully and fully installed and up and running. So things to consider as you're debating whether you should go with a level 2 or a level 3. Another thing that I do want to point out is we do not recommend for a fleet company to go only with level 3 chargers as their main charging solution. This will have an impact on the battery, on the life of the battery. So ideally, it's totally fine to use the level 3 chargers. Not that I'm trying to scare anyone, but the level 3 charger should not be the only solution, right? There should always be, if you're going with level 3, there should always be a mix of level 2 and level 3 at your depot. The second type of charging solution that we have is the home charging solution. So similar chargers that we're going to have on the home charging solution, which are level 2 chargers only, 11.5 kilowatts or 19.2 kilowatts. And this is the typical use case where drivers will actually bring back the vehicles with them at their place, right, at home. So therefore, they're not going back to the depot. Once they're done with their ride, with their route, they just go back home with their vehicle. So therefore, we have to install a charger at the home location. So in those cases, we have come up with a program that will help and support our fleet customers to help them manage and pre-qualify which drivers should be getting those home chargers. But definitely, this is a different type of charging solution where for this one, it's not necessarily about having the software that's combined with the charger, but it's really the our telematic platform that will allow the customer to fully benefit fully get the benefit of the vehicle, the electric vehicle, and the charger at home. And then the last one is public. And here you can read on the slide, largest public network with centralized billing. Really, what we've done is we partner with the charge points, with the flows, the circuit electric of these worlds to have one network that will allow the 4 drivers, right, to be able to go to the network, and the charger that's part of the network will actually recognize that the vehicle itself is part of the network itself. So therefore, we've tried to make it as easy as possible for fleets where you're removing credit cards. There's no need for credit cards, where the network, the charger will recognize the vehicle, and all you have to do is drive up to the charger recognizes the vehicle, the driver, all he has to do is plug the vehicle into the charger, and then we will send the charging costs of the session through the centralized billing to the fleet manager. So those are kind of like the three type of charging solution that we talk about when we're educating customers. And the last thing that it's important for us to say, all of those conversations around being cost effective, well, again, a public solution isn't the only solution. This cannot be your only solution. Excuse me. You need to have a combination of depot, either depot or home. And then if the driver is in need of more power while he's completing his route, then you go to the public charging solution. So hopefully that kind of like answers some of the process. So the first bucket is definitely the education. Once we've qualified, fantastic, we produce the vehicle. And then after that, we deep dive a little bit deeper into the different charging solution to make sure that the customer is ready to receive the vehicles.
Thanks, Kevy.
No problem.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned is software, and obviously part of what you're helping to show is the EV is just the tip of the iceberg here. And moving on to Scott Kuzma, we talked about software. Scott, a lot of fleets already use telematics to monitor their fleet performance. Can you tell us what's unique about telematics for EV fleets and how data can empower electrified businesses?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Going to my first slide. Basically, what telematics is, for those that don't know, it's basically hardware and software working together to make both the vehicle and the business better over time. It's about increasing productivity. As Greg mentioned and Kevy mentioned, people moving to this space, it's a radical change. And as you can see on this next slide, we believe the data that telematics provides really helps in three areas. It helps a fleet customer decide where best to put EV vehicles, because you can track range, you can track usage, you can track trip history to see, okay, where the vehicles are best used. It can help train customers to use their EVs to their most efficient use. So like Kevy mentioned range anxiety. Well, at least from our perspective, our telematics comes with in-vehicle coaching. So it can help work with drivers. It's actually quite an annoying system, but it works, where it coaches you if you're too aggressive as a driver. You're braking too heavy, you got a lead foot. It'll coach you to say slow down so you can best use your vehicle. All that helps. You can use that for an internal combustion vehicle or an EV vehicle, but it helps you drive the vehicle better. Kevy mentioned preconditioning. Our software helps with that range anxiety, so it will help plan for customers to turn on their fleets before their drivers arrive, so they're ready to go. They're charged up, they're cooled or warm, depending on the season, ready to go off the grid, versus taking that off the vehicle where you see a huge battery degradation. So it's the data really does help make those informed decisions. If you go to the next slide, with our charge insights, what you learn for the vehicle, it helps again with the coaching on how to use the vehicle. So our charge insights will tell you if it's plugged or unplugged. Kevin mentioned that. Obviously, a big detriment to productivity if the vehicle doesn't get plugged in at night. These things need to charge overnight. They need planned downtime, state of charge tracking. So because if a driver's out for whatever reason, using it at a charge at an abnormal rate, you can reach out and see what they're doing. Maybe they're blaring the air conditioning or the heat, really driving that range down. Which is a side effect of every EV vehicles, not just ours. So it's something that you can learn. You can learn to not only use your vehicle, but also plan for the future. Kevin mentioned all the charging options we have. So it helps What you will learn with our software is how best to charge the vehicle. Is setting it home with your drivers the right choice? Do they live so far off their territory they're using most of the range before they even get to work that day? All of the history and the data will tell you both how to evolve with your vehicle, but as you look to expand your fleet, are you putting the EVs in the right spot? Are your depots in the right spot? Are your charging options in the right spot? All of the data, there is so much data that we get from our vehicles at this day and age that it will help make those informed decisions as you move to expand your fleet, which, as Greg mentioned, small piece of the market now, but as we continue to grow, it's become more and more important to use this data to learn to drive the vehicles, to maximize your range, and to plan for the future. And the last thing, our charging sites and what everyone is that what are the CO2 offsets? Where are you saving that CO2? How are you helping the environment? A lot of companies have mandates. They have internal mandates where they need to reach a certain level. Our software, most of the software out there will help you track that for you to show you how you're driving your EVs, how their usage is benefiting you from a CO2 perspective. So data is king. It's in all our lives, in all industries, but it really, really is king right now with software. And like I said, learn where to put the vehicles, learn how to use the ones you have, and learn how to plan for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. I think a lot of our audience has vehicle questions. And so we're lucky to have Logan Trainer, who's a Ford ETransit specialist, but I know he's joined us today with information about the F-150 as well. Logan, the question everyone has is how these vehicles compare to their ICE versions. What can you tell us about what people are doing with the ETransit and Ford's other fleet-ready vehicles like the F-150?
Sure. So I'll touch on ETransit a little bit deeper, and then I'll talk a little bit about Lightning and Mach-E. For ETransit, what's really cool is from a perspective of a fleet looking to go from ICE to EV, the van is identical to our T350 ICE van. So it's the exact same interior dimensions, exterior dimensions. So all of your upfits can transfer from your current fleet to your EV fleet. And that makes it much easier in terms of options for fleet customers. All of the tie down points, everything's identical. The only thing that you have above and beyond in the ETransit is the option for Pro Power Onboard, which is a really cool option for people using it as like a rolling toolbox or a mobile service van to keep some of their tools charged and use their electronics while on the road. For ETransit, it's available in cargo van. You get 3 wheelbases, your medium, long, and extended, and 3 roof heights, low, mid, high. And then we also offer it in both chassis cab and cutaway. While there is no passenger van version at this time, I did see a question pop up about that. There is upfitters turning our chassis cab and cutaways into passenger vans in the US. And I believe that's something that is coming to Canada with some of the inquiries I've had recently. In terms of use case for ETransit, the ideal use case is planned predictable routes, frequent stops, high idle rate, a person that is traveling under 160 kilometers a day and has sufficient downtime between uses, which is for overnight charging. And then limited towing and payload. You still have a reasonable payload, but your driver behavior, like it was talked about before, driver behavior, weather, it will all affect it along with payload, and payload is a big one. Mobile service and last mile delivery are 2 of the biggest use cases for it. And we're seeing a lot of municipalities, hydro and telecom, start to adopt the ETransit into their fleets, and they're using that to meet their green initiatives. And I saw a question pop up about CO2 savings and emissions at some point. But to give you an idea, that question asked about 5 years. But if you took our T350 ICE, long wheelbase, medium roof, kind of the most generic transit van, and you put it up against the exact same ETransit so long wheelbase, medium roof, you would save a little over 100,000 kilograms of CO2 emissions, or the equivalent of over 1,800 trees planted over a 10-year use period. So there is a lot of opportunity for green, for green initiatives and for fleets to start transitioning into use for. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. There's a lot of opportunity for green initiatives and fleets that need to meet those mandates, whether they're internal or their government. We can definitely help them do that. And the cost of use for the ETransit versus a transit ICE van is very equivalent. There's a higher upfront cost, but the payoff by use is generally pretty quick. I think quicker than most people realize. I can talk a little bit about Lightning. Obviously, it's available in 3 retail trims: XLT, Lariat, Platinum, and we do have the Lightning Pro model, which I believe right now is, and maybe Greg can confirm, is limited to major national fleet. And then the biggest use case for those right now, we're seeing hydro construction and telecoms adopting those into their fleets. The governments are taking them now to be used as service vehicles, and we're seeing Lightnings put into fleets for management use vehicles. And then one of our biggest things we're doing for Lightning and Mach-E is called Project Rental. It's a program that gives customers an opportunity to test electric vehicles in their fleets for both commercial and government. And the same thing with Mach-E. Mach-E, obviously, we're not seeing as much commercial use out of, but for sales vehicles and management executive vehicles in fleets is where that is being used heavily. I don't have much more to touch on unless anyone's got any questions regarding probably ETransit.
I think we do have some questions, specifically ETransit questions as well. One of them was, does Ford make an ETransit passenger bus, or is the modification done only by third parties?
Only by third parties currently.
Okay. A few questions about delivery timelines. I wonder if you can sort of reiterate what customers can expect for an ETransit at this point in time.
So I can probably take that. So there's a couple of questions. I don't know, Andrew, there's a couple of questions that are kind of related in the chat that maybe I can just try to cover off for people relating to vehicle timelines and that. So as we came through, you guys are all very aware of the pandemic and microchips and all those nightmare scenarios we've been wrestling with. Currently, if you were to place a Mach-E, ETransit, or F-150 Lightning order, I would estimate that the delivery from order to delivery time would probably be in the neighborhood of probably 4 to 5 months total. So that is not quite normal, and inventories on dealer lots are still quite low. But we are able to, for factory orders for specific customers, we're able to make that happen. So that's kind of the range there. The other comment I saw was about those who already have a charging solution and are looking to buy just the vehicle. So one of the things that happened last year, as we were going out into the market, we were first to market with Lightning, and we were first to market with ETransit, and with very limited quantities. And at the same time, we at Ford Pro had purchased a company called Electrify and brought them in, and that's our charging organization. So we are we have scarce vehicle resources, and we have an electric vehicle charging organization that we're trying to stand up. So what we were doing, and I will be quite open that some customers found this frustrating, but really what we were doing was trying to learn ourselves and trying to prioritize customers who were willing to partner with us both on the vehicle and the charging side. Now, we are still doing that, right? We are still trying to, grow our charging company, et cetera. But at the same time, we do understand that customers, early adopters, have got charging infrastructure in place, right? So 100%, the Ford Pro chargers work better with the Ford vehicles. There's lots of benefits on the software and the way the vehicles and the chargers integrate themselves. And that's sort of for another day, for a more sort of one-to-one kind of conversation. But if you are a customer who finds yourself in the position that you've got lots of charging infrastructure that's appropriate for the vehicles we're talking about, now I'd love to sell you chargers, but we do have the opportunity to move beyond that. We have higher volumes now than we did last year, and we're able to support some of those customers. So I think definitely worth the conversation. There was also a comment about will we be sharing our contact information? Absolutely, we will. So if there's things that are sort of more of a deal with one-on-one, then certainly me and the team will certainly reach out to you, and we'll provide that information so you guys can reach out to us directly, and then we'll see where those kind of conversations can go. But I think there's a couple of questions about that I think that answer probably helps with.
Thanks. That's great. Appreciate you covering those ones. For the kind of, I guess the rural members of our audience today, there are a couple of questions, in that direction. Wondering, so can any of you speak to what the process is for getting service support in rural and remote communities?
So at this point, I have to, how many dealers? Guys, anyone know? I don't know anyone knows how many dealers are able to service them. I know that we have a new model. It's called Model E in our system and in our world, and there's well over 350 or 400 Ford dealers located. And most small, if we're talking super remote, but most small communities in Canada will likely have a Ford store, right? So, and most Ford stores will be able to take care of your electric vehicle needs.
Greg, at last count, I think there was only about 25 dealers across the country that are not currently EV certified. So you're right. Pretty much chances are you will be able to handle it in most locations.
Yeah.
And then
another way is 429 dealers are EV certified as we speak, right? So are able to service. So 429 dealers are able to service the electric
which is about 98% of our dealers.
Yeah,
correct.
Right.
So so if there's a Ford store in your town or in a nearby town, that's where you'll be able to get your vehicle certified or serviced.
Yeah, those are some great numbers. Give people a good idea that, as you said, your Ford store can usually handle.
Then maybe if we can add to this is we are actually in the process of electrifying our dealers as well, where we've got a lot of dealers right now that are going through this program. I know it was in the news, but not only are they most of our dealers are able to service electric vehicles, but also we're going to have a good amount of dealers that will be able to provide charging solutions as well to our customers that are driving and are going through their routes. So, dealers as well are participating in this electrification, and they're part of the solution as well as we're moving forward.
Great. The other related question on this topic was, I think probably for you again, Kevy, how does charging work on remote work sites?
Yeah, very good question. So we have seen construction companies being able to install level 2 chargers on specific sites, having chargers available for customers to to charge their vehicles while they're working on site and then leaving. So we have seen instances where, this is what they do. They've got the resources to install. They're being creative on how to install those chargers. But I can tell you that we have seen already construction companies that are able to install level 2 chargers in different areas, right? We've seen in some cabinets, like we've seen like so many, I've seen in the US, but we've seen also in Quebec that I've seen one example where, yes, they are being creative and, they're, our level 2 chargers are being able to be installed in more, temporary areas and you install, deinstall, and then you move on as where the different sites take you. But I have seen examples where, construction companies are able to install those chargers in mobile sites. Okay,
thank you. Couple of questions about data and telematics. One maybe quick one, Scott, is the data from Ford Telematics exportable and usable in other, to be used in other systems so that the numbers can be crunched by a company that's, very into looking at the data in different ways?
Yes, our data is available. We have our telematics products, but we also make it available, and we call it through our data services department that can talk to most of the other telematics providers and data providers out there. And we can use some APIs to connect them directly. So yes, we do offer that capability.
Okay, and here's a double-barreled question, but I think the first part is really, well, what options are included in terms of vehicle tracking? That's part one.
In terms of vehicle tracking?
Yeah.
So all of our vehicles come with embedded modem. So that emits a signal once every 30 seconds. So we can get data such as driving behaviors, service op codes, different things like that. Is that what the question is? So that
I think that's the question, but
okay.
So standard and included at all times.
Yeah,
So,
in all of our vehicles as of 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to know that all the EVs come with e-telematics, and
Yeah.
e-telematics gives you, it's a full comprehensive, no charge for 3 years telematics package that includes everything around around vehicle behavior, vehicle health, driver behavior. So it's a comprehensive package that comes with the vehicle. All you do is turn on your modem, and you get all the software that goes with it. It's one thing I should have mentioned earlier. As you're learning, learning through data is key. And I think Scott brought this up, and your electric vehicles from us will help you learn, because they're going to give you a ton of information that you can leverage and, learn about your phase 2, your phase 3 kind of deployments. So lots of good information currently available for free, which is good.
We have a couple minutes left, and I just want to jump to some, Canadian focused topics. Cold is a couple of questions about cold, and with the telematics information you're getting regarding charges and usage, do you take climate into consideration?
The telematics data we get is in real time. So it's whatever the vehicle is affecting, that's the data we're getting. So if it's being affected by the cold or being affected by the heat, it's real time, real data. So
real-time learnings in that case.
It's real-time learnings, yes, and it adjusts accordingly as well.
Okay. And I had another one here, which was about performance and range of electric vehicles in sustained cold weather, and what part of your process addresses what you've learned about that so far.
Yeah, I'd say probably during the phase 1 that I talked about, the BEV-FIT assessment, is where we go in details and we kind of try and show the different business cases, and with 50% payload, and as the temperature drops, you kind of see how much percentage of the battery are you getting, right? So definitely in the early stages, this is where we'd go over the full business case with the customer, and it really to make the customer understand, right? What kind of range are you going to have, and when we're talking about those use cases, and is the customer right for the electric vehicle, this is where we would cover that during the phase 1 of the EV-FIT BEV-FIT assessment, where understanding what was going on in the marketplace, we went out, did this study, and being able to provide real life numbers to customers so that they can make the right decision as to whether or not, should I go with an EV, with an F-150 Lightning extended range, or even if the ETransit is the right case, is the right vehicle for them.
Okay. Thanks, Kevy. One last question, which is there a minimum number of vehicles that you can consider to be a fleet? Some indigenous communities, for example, have very small variety of vehicles, very small fleets.
So, our general rule for a fleet fin is like 5 units, but in operation, but, we have lots of ways to get vehicles. I mean, if a fleet is small and they won't get, we have certain different levels of fleet, depending on how big you are, whether you get an account manager or not, that kind of stuff, which is typical in the industry. But even retail, you can get these by retail as well. So I think if there's a specific person who wants to talk a little bit more about what their circumstances and how they might be able to go down this path, just reach out to us and we'll understand if is fleet appropriate, or is it just finding you a good dealer who can take care of you in a retail channel. That might be possible too.
Super.
Yeah, and if I can, even the customers that have major fleets, you know, as some of them are starting, sometimes all they want to try is 1, 2, 5 EVs charger to see how everything works out within their own organization. So this is very typical of seeing, like, you know, very small numbers just to understand what they're getting themselves into before going and, you know, having this large investment, right? So
the one thing that's kind of cool right now is that ETransit actually qualifies for one of the federal rebate programs, and it's $10,000 for up to 10 units per year. So a lot of customers, you know, if you're looking at doing this sort of in the near future, you know, there's $100,000 if you buy 10 ETransits on the table. You know, you do it in the 23 calendar year, and then you get another shot at that incentive next year, right? So that's another sort of thing that sort of you got to be aware, because there are different levels of incentives. There's extra provincial incentives in Quebec as well as in BC and some other ones around too. So there's lots of, you know, opportunities out there to, you know, to help, you know.
Yeah. Well, guys, I want to thank you for making yourselves and all of your knowledge available to us today. It's been a great discussion. And I think we've got to that core issue of why it's important for businesses and other organizations to think of their EV fleets differently. So thanks as well to the audience for many great questions that took the conversation even further. Now I'll pass back to you, Nino, for details about the next session in this series and more upcoming fleet electrification events. Thanks, everyone.
Well, a big thank you to you, Andrew, for moderating the discussion, and thank you to the team from Ford Pro. That was really a fantastic immersion into the topic with some great insights. And thank you to Ford Pro for sponsoring the event and being great partners with us on the EV Fleets Knowledge Hub at evfleets.ca, where you can go through your own modularized learning sessions to learn about the transition required to EV fleets. When it comes to fleet electrification, we've got you covered in other areas as well. Coming up on April the 20th, we have our next webinar in this series, how to set up charging infrastructure at a fleet depot from planning to installation. And that event is brought to you by our partner ABB. You'll be invited to register for that event if you subscribe to the Electric Autonomy newsletter. So we encourage you to register there. Finally, if you're able to make it to Toronto on May 17th and 18th, you'll have a chance to meet the Ford Pro team and to test drive a Lightning, an ETransit, and Mackie, and also many other vehicles, and to meet with many other vendors who can help enable your fleet EV transition by attending the EV and Charging Expo. It'll be a major event with vehicle test drives, expert conference speakers, and exhibitors in attendance. And we think you'll get a lot out of the 2 days there. So we hope to see you there. Thanks very much for joining us today, and see you soon.